Welcome to Hard Script.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. I found out everything I needed to know in 7 words. Not through an argument. Not through confessions. Through a whisper. One careless sentence she thought I'd never hear. I don't even want to hug him anymore. That was it. 7 words. And everything we were collapsed in silence. It was a Tuesday night. Late, maybe 11:40. I was getting a glass of water, barefoot, half asleep. The house was dead quiet except for the murmur of her voice. Soft, careful, the kind of tone you reserve for secrets. I paused near the bedroom door. She was lying on the bed, her phone pressed to her ear, voice low, legs crossed in the air like she was a teenager again. Laughing, giggling, talking about me like I wasn't real. "I don't feel anything when he touches me," she said, and then she laughed again. That light, cruel laugh that told me she didn't just stop loving me. She started erasing me. I stood in that hallway, holding my glass like it was the last thing tethering me to the life I thought I had. My pulse didn't spike. My breath didn't catch. Something colder happened. I didn't get angry. I didn't storm in. I didn't ask who she was talking to. I turned around, walked to the kitchen, put the glass down, and let the silence do what I couldn't. She didn't know I heard. She didn't even look up when I walked past her later. Just smiled at her phone and rolled over in bed, humming to herself. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to ask why. She made it clear. She didn't want to be touched. Fine. She'd never feel me again. She wanted distance. I'd give her a void so massive she'd forget what warmth felt like. She thought I was blind, soft, predictable. A man too dumb to notice. Too desperate to walk away. She was wrong. I became a ghost in my own house. And the best part? She didn't notice. Not right away. She thought I was just tired. Maybe overworked. Maybe moody. But I was preparing. Quietly, efficiently. Shadow moves. No warnings. No words. Just silence and precision. Because when the final cut came, it wouldn't be a scream. It would be a whisper. Just like hers. It started with small shifts. I stopped asking her if she'd be home for dinner. I stopped texting her to see how her day was going. I still cooked. Still cleaned. Still played the role. But inside, I was hollowing myself out, one silence at a time. The night after I heard her whisper, I watched her sit on the couch laughing at something on her phone. She looked alive. Lit up. And it wasn't because of me. I studied her from the kitchen. The curve of her smile. The way her thumb scrolled with purpose. She wasn't scrolling aimlessly. She was talking to him. I knew it without needing proof. Later that week, her friend Zoe slipped up. We were at a mutual friend's birthday. Zoe leaned in, a bit tipsy, and said, "She says you've been distant lately. But maybe it's good you're giving her space. It's what she needs right now." I didn't react. I just nodded. But in my head, I marked the words. What she needs. Like I was just a placeholder. A background character in her emotional drama. She was writing a new story, and I wasn't the hero in it. I was the burden she was trying to phase out. I started checking things. Not obsessively. Just enough. I saw the Uber receipts. Midday rides to locations she never mentioned. The Spotify playlist labeled drive vibes that didn't sound like her taste. It sounded like someone else's. A new mood. A new phase. A new man. Still, I said nothing. Silence became my armor. My advantage. She thought I didn't notice. Thought I was clueless. But every lie she fed me, every gap in her stories, every fake smile she wore, I collected them like ammunition. Not for a confrontation. Not to throw in her face. No. For something far colder. Strategic disappearance. One night, she came home later than usual. No explanation. Just a kiss on the cheek like we were roommates playing house. She said, "Work was a mess. I'm exhausted." And she went straight to bed, not even glancing at the dinner I made. Salmon. Her favorite. Used to be, anyway. I sat there, eating alone, chewing slowly, staring at the chair across from me. The chair that used to hold laughter, stories, love. Now it held absence. Weightless, empty absence. She didn't see the shift in my eyes. She didn't see how I stopped waiting. But the moment I finished that dinner, I knew. I'd already started leaving her. And she hadn't even noticed yet. I never planned to dig. But once you know the truth is there, buried somewhere beneath her new perfume and late returns, you start looking. Not out of jealousy. Out of necessity. Out of clarity. The first real proof came from a shared laptop. She left it open one morning, rushed, careless. The kind of carelessness that only happens when you believe you're untouchable. I wasn't snooping. Not really. I just clicked the browser, and it opened exactly where she left off. A hidden tab. Private messages. A name I already suspected. Ryan. Her coworker. The one she mentioned offhand a few times, always with that dismissive tone designed to disarm me. Turns out, they weren't talking about deadlines. They were planning weekends. Private jokes. Little compliments. His message from 3 nights ago still sat unread. Last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about your laugh. That was the moment something shifted in me permanently. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just a clean break in my perception of her. She was already living in another life. I was just the furniture she hadn't moved out yet. I didn't confront her. I didn't even close the tab. I left it exactly where she'd find it, when she got home. Let her wonder if I saw it. Let her sit in silence, unsure. That was the beginning of her unraveling. The next move was practical. I checked our joint bank account. And just like I thought, there were discrepancies. Lyft rides to hotels. Dinners at places we never went. Cash withdrawals. Clean, spaced out, just under the radar. But not under mine. So I started moving. Quietly. Strategically. Half the funds, gone into a separate account. Legal consultations scheduled under a different name. I knew a guy. Divorce lawyer. Discreet. Ruthless. I told him what I needed. Not drama. Not revenge. Just precision. She didn't notice the change in me. She still kissed me goodbye like everything was normal. Still asked, "Can you pick up oat milk?" Like we weren't living on borrowed time. But the man standing in front of her wasn't the same. He was already calculating exits. The most surreal part? She still smiled at me. Still called me babe. Still sat beside me on the couch like nothing had changed. Maybe in her mind, nothing had. Maybe she really thought she could have both worlds. But I had already left hers. All that was left now was timing. She called me 3 times that day. I didn't pick up. It was a Wednesday. The sky was gray. The kind of quiet weather that makes the world feel paused. I left the house before sunrise. No note. No explanation. Left my phone behind, powered off on the nightstand. Let her sit with the silence. Let her wonder. I drove out of the city. 1 suitcase in the trunk. Nothing dramatic. Just a clean absence. A vanishing act with no sound. I didn't check the time. Didn't care where I was going. I just needed space. Real space. The kind you can't share with someone who thinks you're furniture. By noon, I was at a lakeside motel 2 hours from home. Cash payment. No paper trail. A room with 1 bed, a stained curtain, and a dusty Bible in the drawer. It was perfect. I sat on the edge of that mattress and breathed for the first time in weeks. No pretending. No playing house. No background noise of betrayal. Just stillness. And in that stillness, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Back home, she was unraveling. I know because she messaged my best friend. Twice. Then his girlfriend. Then my brother. All with the same tone. Have you seen him? I'm worried. Worried. That was rich. I'd been drowning in silence for months. And now she was anxious because her control cracked. I checked into that motel under an alias and turned everything off. No bank card usage. No calls. No digital footprint. Just gone. She couldn't track what she didn't understand. And that was the point. She had been so sure of me. So confident I'd stay no matter what. My absence. It terrified her. On day 2, I finally turned my phone on. 10 missed calls. For voicemails. Her voice cracking in one of them. Asking if I was okay. If I needed anything. She said she was worried. Said she didn't mean whatever I thought I heard. No apology. Just deflection. Damage control. I didn't answer. Because this wasn't about punishing her. It was about removing myself. I wasn't her husband anymore. Not in any way that mattered. I was just a man she used to know. And now, I was a ghost slipping through the cracks of the life she'd taken for granted. Let her feel the absence. Let her sit in the void she created. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't valued. The thing about cheaters, they rarely plan beyond the thrill. They chase excitement, not consequences. And when reality hits, it hits like cold steel. That was my next move. Precision. Quiet destruction of the illusion she built around him. His name was Ryan. Her coworker. But he wasn't just that. He was sloppy. Loud. The kind of man who thought charm could cover carelessness. And worse, he underestimated me. I didn't need revenge. I needed facts. So I found them. A friend of mine worked in private security. Low-key. Off the grid. I gave him a name, a photo, and a week. What came back was everything I needed, and more. Ryan wasn't clean. 2 HR warnings for inappropriate conduct. A history of brief, overlapping office relationships. One of them resulted in a quiet settlement. He wasn't just a fling. He was a risk, a walking liability, and the company didn't know half of it. That's where I came in. No drama, no anonymous threats, just a carefully worded email to the firm's legal department. Attached, screenshots, dates, voicemails, one photo, her and Ryan outside a hotel on a company trip, timestamped. I didn't even sign the message. Just let the pieces fall where they would. Within a week, Ryan was let go due to restructuring. That's what they told him. She found out the next day. When she came home, she was pale, shaken, said barely a word, walked right past me, into the bedroom, and shut the door. The silence was different now. Before, it was indifference. Now it was fear. I didn't ask questions. She didn't offer answers. But her hands were trembling at dinner. The man she risked everything for had vanished from her daily life. She didn't know why. Couldn't prove it was me. But deep down, she knew. Somewhere inside, she realized I wasn't the man she could toy with anymore. At work, people started pulling back from her. Whispers, distance, cold professionalism. I watched it unfold, silently, from my own distance. Like a director watching a scene he already rewrote. I didn't have to raise my voice. I just shifted the ground beneath her. Ryan was gone. Her safety net was cut. And for the first time, I saw it in her eyes, the beginning of real panic. But I wasn't finished yet. Because the world she rebuilt without me was about to learn how temporary it truly was. The first cracks didn't come from me. They came from those around her. It started at her sister's baby shower. She showed up alone. Wore that fake smile she used when she wanted to pretend everything was fine. But people notice. People remember how a couple used to act, how they used to stand close, touch hands without thinking, lean in when they laughed. And now? She walked in with her phone clenched like a lifeline and eyes that scanned the room for someone who wasn't there. Me. Her cousin pulled her aside, asked if we were okay. She forced a laugh, said I was just busy with work. But the room heard the lie. And more importantly, they felt the shift. The emptiness around her wasn't just about a missing man. It was about a woman unraveling. A week later, one of her coworkers posted a group photo. Casual Friday. Office smiles. Everyone tagged, except her. I saw it. She wasn't in the photo. She was in the comments, saying she hadn't been invited to lunch. The replies were cold, non-committal, and the silence that followed said more than any words. Isolation doesn't happen with noise. It creeps in through absence. Fewer texts, fewer laughs, invitations that never come. She was slipping, and she didn't even know how to stop it. I never said a word, never commented, never messaged. I watched the collapse with the same calm she once used to dismiss me. She created a world where I didn't exist. Now she was living in one where no one noticed she was fading. Then came the call from her mom. I didn't pick up, but the voicemail was enough. Concerned tone, gentle words, asking if I was okay, if she had done something. There was a pause before the end. Her mom said, I know things haven't been right for a while, but you were always kind, always steady. I'm sorry. That's when I knew the narrative had shifted, not because I spoke, but because silence told its own story. She wasn't the victim. She was just absent. Absent in all the ways that mattered. And the people she once counted on were starting to see it. She didn't need a scandal to lose face. All it took was distance. And I gave her exactly that, measured, cold, and absolute. She started reaching out more often. Little things. Casual texts. Memes. Pictures of our dog from old trips. No apologies. Just bait. Like she thought nostalgia could be currency. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because there was nothing left to say. What she hadn't realized yet was that I wasn't angry. Anger fades. What replaced it was distance. A deeper kind. The kind you don't return from. The kind that turns love into observation. I watched from afar. Saw her stories on social media change. Fewer group photos. More selfies with motivational captions. Quotes about self-discovery. But even through the filters, her eyes gave her away. She looked lost. Like someone wandering through a house full of locked doors, searching for a version of herself she let go of long ago. People stopped tagging her in things. Her best friend moved on with a new circle. Her name stopped coming up in places where it used to carry weight. I didn't celebrate it. It wasn't revenge. It was just consequence. At work, she started asking around. That's what I heard through the grapevine. One of her coworkers reached out to me, said she seemed different, disconnected, distant, said she asked if I was okay, if I ever mentioned her. I told him the truth. I hadn't. I'd stopped talking about her the moment I stopped existing in her world. It's a strange kind of power, not silence, but indifference. That's when I realized something else. I no longer wanted her back, not even the old version, because the man I had become in her absence was colder, clearer, sharper. I didn't flinch when she messaged. I didn't pause when she called. I simply observed, like watching a memory burn from the safety of distance. She wasn't evil. She wasn't broken. She was just reckless with someone who once gave her everything. And now, with nothing left to hold on to, she began to spiral. I knew she'd reach the center eventually, that hollow place where even her own reflection didn't recognize her. And when she did, she'd look for the one person who used to anchor her. But by then, I'd be gone in every way that mattered. I wasn't punishing her. I was protecting myself. And that meant staying in the shadows, cold, silent, untouchable. It happened 3 weeks after I vanished from her orbit. I was in line at a coffee shop near my temporary apartment, hoodie up, head down. And there she was, standing outside, hesitating like a ghost afraid of sunlight. She spotted me. Our eyes met for just a second. Enough. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She walked in like she had every right to be there. Like the months between us hadn't split the timeline in two. I didn't move. She stood a foot away, arms crossed, voice low. Can we talk? I didn't say anything. Just stepped aside and let her follow me out. We stood by my car. Cold air, quiet lot. The world around us kept moving, but we were still. Two people who once shared everything now reduced to strangers dissecting the aftermath. She started with questions. Rapid, desperate. Where had I been? Why hadn't I answered? Did I hate her? I let her speak. Let her run out of breath. Then silence. That's when she said it. I made a mistake. The words hung in the air, weightless and useless, like throwing a paper towel into a house fire. I looked at her, really looked, and saw it for the first time, regret. Not because she missed me, but because she missed the version of herself that only existed next to me. The stability, the presence, the man who always stayed. But he was gone. I told her, quietly, that I wasn't here for closure. I wasn't here for apologies. I was here because I stopped running. She asked if we could start over. I didn't laugh. I didn't scoff. I just shook my head. Because she wasn't asking for love. She was asking for the version of me she destroyed, to rebuild her own comfort. And that man, he died the night she whispered, "Don't touch me." This wasn't revenge. This was reality. She broke the version of me who would have fought, who would have compromised, who would have begged. The man standing in front of her now, he was rebuilt in silence. Stronger, colder, unavailable. So I looked her in the eye and gave her the only truth that mattered. I'm not coming back. Then I walked away. Not fast, not angry, just final. Let her stand there. Let the wind say what I didn't. Sometimes silence is the only language people understand. After that day, she stopped trying to reach out. No texts, no calls, just silence. But I knew it wasn't peace, it was retreat. She was folding in on herself, and the world she built without me was turning cold. I heard she left her job 2 weeks later. Said it was burnout. Truth was, her reputation never recovered. Whispers followed her through every hallway. People don't forget the one who burned bridges with quiet arrogance and returned empty-handed. Mutual friends started fading from her life. Not because I told them to, but because people sense energy. And hers had changed. There was no light, no balance. Just a woman who used to smile like she owned the room, now walking through it like she didn't belong. I never asked for updates, but they came anyway. People always talk when something breaks publicly but quietly. Her sister mentioned that she'd moved back in with their parents temporarily. Just until I figure things out, she'd said. I didn't react. Let her figure it out. I'd already done my part by disappearing. The final unraveling came a month later. I was grabbing groceries, a normal afternoon, and I saw her. Not up close. Across the parking lot. She didn't see me. She was sitting in her car, hands on the wheel, staring out the windshield like she'd forgotten where she was. Hair tied up. Pale. Lost. There was a heaviness in her posture I'd never seen before. Not defeat, but absence. The same absence she once wore in our kitchen when I tried to hold her hand. Now it lived in her. Fully. That's when I knew she wasn't in control anymore. Not of the story, not of herself, not of anything. She used to walk into rooms like she could bend the energy. Now she sat in silence, hoping no one saw her fall apart. And I walked past her without hesitation. Didn't wave, didn't pause, didn't feel anything, not even pride. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about ending. And endings don't always explode. Sometimes they dissolve quietly in the places no one claps for. That day, I understood the power of quiet resilience. Not the kind that begs to be seen, but the kind that walks away without looking back. A year passed, not marked by any milestones, but by a quiet transformation. I didn't rebuild my life overnight. I didn't post quotes about healing or force smiles through pain. I just existed, day by day, quietly, intentionally. I found a rhythm again, a job that paid enough, a space that felt like mine. I learned how to enjoy silence without fear. I cooked for myself, took walks at night, joined a boxing gym, not for anger, but for clarity. I let the sweat strip away every version of me that used to shrink in her presence. There was no new woman, no grand moving on, just stillness. I stopped checking her profiles, stopped wondering what if. She became like static, background noise I no longer tuned into. And in that stillness, I rediscovered something far more important than closure. Peace. One morning, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized her handwriting immediately. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I stood there, envelope in hand, and understood that whatever was inside wasn't meant for me. It was meant for the man I used to be. I burned it in a metal tray behind my apartment building. Watched it curl and vanish. No drama. No performance. Just ash. Weeks later, I ran into an old friend at a bar. He asked if I ever thought about her, if I missed her. I told him the truth. I don't miss her. I miss the man I was before I had to survive her. But even that man wasn't who I am now. Because he stayed too long. He begged. He hoped. I don't do that anymore. That part of me is gone, for good. She lost me long before I walked away. She just didn't notice. She thought silence meant confusion. That distance was temporary. She never realized it was surgical, intentional, permanent. And when the silence finally echoed louder than her presence, it was already too late. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't expose her. I didn't retaliate. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. Now I live by a simple rule. I don't go back to places that broke me quietly. Because I've learned that sometimes the strongest men aren't the ones who fight to be heard, but the ones who vanish, rebuild, and never offer an explanation. And the final words she'll never hear? You wanted silence. Now it's yours. Forever. Been through it. When they crossed a line, and you made sure they felt it.